All eyes are on Indian Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today as he's going to present his third union budget. The budget has stirred a wave of anxiety and expectation among citizens all across the country. This year's budget is going to be unique in several ways as it is advanced by nearly a month, and also a 92-year-old long tradition of separate railway budget has been discarded. The Election Commission too will have its close eye on any violation of Model Code of Conduct during the Union Budget, as 5 states of India, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Goa and Manipur are going to polls. The Finance Minister of India tabled the economic survey in Parliament on Tuesday. The Chief Economist of India, Arun Jaitley, presented the economic survey. Here are the key points highlighted this year. Our correspondent Rinda Agarwal gives you this story. Take a look.
The economic survey document begins with some interesting facts and figures about India. Welfare spending in India suffers from unequal allocation of resources, with the most poor states getting least amount of funds for their social programs. Thus, evidently, another fact correctly indicates that the income inequality in India is rising. On international trade, there are some interesting figures. As of 2011, India's trade to GDP ratio has overtaken China. Overall, last year, India weathered the external disruptions quite well. But with rising oil prices and sharp fluctuations at currency exchanges, the tide has not subsided. The chief economic advisor further mentioned in his speech that the CPI inflation has come down. Also, the current account deficit has come down from 2 to 3% to less than 0.5%. And the foreign exchange reserves have risen. Now moving on to some of the concerns expressed in the economic survey. The survey confirms the ballooning of bad debts with banks in the current financial year and suggests the creation of a bad debt bank to take away toxic debts from the bank and clearing their balance sheets.
The balance sheets of corporates and the balance sheets of banks are still challenged. We do see evidence of that. You can see the NPAs as a percentage of loans is high and rising, especially in the public sector banks.
The survey also brings back the age-old demand of a stable tax regime and widening of the tax base, including bringing real estate under GST. Demonetization dampened the GDP growth of the country, and to put it back on track, measures to remonetize the economy need to be taken.
We expect real GDP growth to slow down by about 1/4 to 1/2 percentage point relative to the baseline. There should be a fast remonetization. And, the earlier that we withdraw the limits on cash, the better. I think the impetus to digitalization that the government has provided must be continued. But I think that one must be careful here. The transition must be gradual. It must be inclusive, because there are lots of people who are not digitally connected.
The survey mentions that India needs to meet its 3 main challenges to realize its still untapped potential. It is the inefficient distribution of resources, the existing confusion regarding the property rights, and the need to improve the still challenged state capacity. Rinda Agarwal, WION, New Delhi.
As India gears up to present its annual budget, Pakistan is closely watching all the developments taking place in New Delhi. Our Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui brings you this report.
While many in Pakistan want seamless trade with India, geopolitical tensions have sabotaged their wishes.
It's relation between India and Pakistan that have been always, the issue. But even when we take aside the political issues, we are talking of huge impediments in the Indian market. When it comes to the other economies, you must remember that South Asian economies are very complementary. There is very little that we can trade with each other than very simple goods. Each one of us is trading more with Europe and East Asia and United States than we are with each other.
But it's not just that. Many in Pakistan also want India to change its policy of non-tariff barriers.
India has a lot of NTBs, non-tariff barriers. It's very difficult to penetrate their market. And despite the fact that they have given us, so they say, MFN, most favored nation status. But that status is got a very high barrier. Pakistan has one of the most open economies in South Asia. Now, so everyone wants to trade with us because they can sell their goods in Pakistan. But for us to be able to sell in India, India has to lower their barriers. And unless that happens, we will never gain from it.
When it comes to India's annual budget, Pakistan's armed forces are usually quick to point out the country's size and how that justifies the demand of their Indian counterparts for an increase in funds. But pointing to Pakistan's nuclear deterrence, experts feel otherwise.
Pakistan has achieved, a certain nuclear deterrence, especially in the small nuclear bombs that makes the conventional arms race irrelevant now. Thank God Pakistan has achieved that. Pakistan should follow its own defense, pursue its own defense according to its own resources. The threat of Indian conventional weapons on Pakistan is, I think, over. We've seen that they've had 2-3 build-ups, they've not been able to attack. They will not be able to attack in the future. I think if India wants to run its own economy down by running a big defense budget, let them. I would rejoice.
The benefits Pakistan can reap from opening up trade with India are huge. But for now, Pakistan-India trade relations are a victim of geopolitical tensions. And for that reason, commerce is not a priority. This is Taha Siddiqui with cameraman Raw Bilal reporting for WION from Islamabad.
It's not just India that's interested in what will be unveiled in the budget today, but the wider world will be watching with great interest too. WION's Mandy Clark spoke to an economist in London about the European view on India's economy. Take a look.
Tirthankar Roy is a professor at the London School of Economics. He says Europe wants India's economy to keep growing.
India being a good destination for foreign investment matters to Europe quite centrally, quite directly and deeply. In terms of companies, it's very good news if India grows at, say, 7% plus rate. And there's some openness about exactly what's going to be the growth rate. But if it sustains, a number of other things that are going for India will also benefit foreign capital. I think that's the most direct engagement that you can see in the near future. On the economic front, there is much greater labor exchange, greater collaboration in software and technology, and also there's much more population movements between India and Europe that's going on. That's going to continue. There are the market for skilled labor, whether you like it or not, is going to be more or less integrated in future, and India is going to play quite a big role in that. In the long run, the outlook of the economy is positive for a number of reasons. It's a very good, it's a huge market. It is a very large pool of skilled workforce. It's a very flexible labor market.
What's clear from a Western perspective is a strong Indian economy is not just good news for India, but the West as well. They see a strong trade partner and a possible counterpoint to the rising influence of China. Mandy Clark, WION, London.